and there's a rationale behind it. Native Americans participate in military service at higher rates than any other racial group. Probably aware of this. Native American veterans are also too often isolated from the broader system, serve veterans and their families, and this program recognizes and honors Native Americans as members of the community and seeks to connect them. So it has a specific scope of work, as RFP does. And it's listed here. You can see it's identify, engage, and facilitate effective referrals by holding or attending events, pathfinding throughout King County, especially in geographically isolated areas where we're more likely to find veterans in need that aren't able to find their services on their own. Assessing their needs, identifying appropriate resources to meet those needs, and providing referrals and facilitating connections to resources. Regularly attend Pathfinder meetings. We have team meetings that are convened by the Pathfinder coordinator, and that person's goal is to literally coordinate the work of the Pathfinders, and also check in with the Pathfinders to understand what some of the challenges might be and try to solve some of those challenges so they can continue to work.
Frank, just
Yeah.
some questions about that. Should I hold this till the end?
No.
Okay. So, as we think about coming on board to 7 organizations doing this, and as we think about, what is the best onboarding strategy for someone new, we're trying to syncopate that. There's a word that's my brain's not coming up. Right, with your offerings. And so kind of, in addition to being what you described, is there a specific learning agenda associated with this? Are there kind of findings to date? Just wanted to get a little more granular with what that looks and feels like.
I remember 2 questions, and one is trainings.
Yeah.
Right. Then the other is to kind of catch up with the practices of the existing Pathfinders.
Yep.
I think the catch-up part can be accomplished by these team meetings with the coordinator and all the Pathfinders get together and discuss what's happening at that time and how they want to improve their effectiveness or their reach. And also share information about those who they're in contact with or want to get in contact with. And there are trainings also. Some are indicated in the RFP where it describes familiarity with systems. Now, this Pathfinder is not prioritizing only things, but it's also the Pathfinder for this strategy is not to turn away any veterans or kind of need more services. The Pathfinder is really focused on, when it comes to housing, preventing veterans from becoming homeless by providing services and emergency needs. But having said that, this Pathfinder is expected to familiarize themselves with some of those homeless tools, including something called the VSHSL. All systems that catalog, say, veterans on a day-by-day basis who need housing. There are also trainings at the coordinator level, trainings and emergency, I'd say, that are provided by King County or not by King County that may help you perform the work that are not spelled out in the RFP. And that is a decision or a collective response, I guess, that the Pathfinders will provide to the coordinator, requesting certain skills, improvements, or learnings that they wouldn't have otherwise that I would do.
So kind of a pulling up we're all seeing this, we're not equipped to do this. Can we talk about some resources that would help build our skills? Okay, great. I've got it more of a sense of. Thank you. That's really helpful.
And it's really a relatively new river of work that you will be joining whoever wins this RFP. And there's still the ability to help form it individually.
Okay.
That's most effective. I'll leave it at that. Third on the list is actively work with community-based organizations and other veteran-serving organizations. So we don't want to be siloed. We want to reach out to organizations as best we can. Part of the combined values approach. Actively work with the King County's own veterans program to make sure that there are referrals, that if the referrals are appropriate for a King County resource, make sure that that referral happens to King County. Become familiar with, as I was just describing, these lists and tools for those in need of housing. Navigators, who are those who navigate those in need to housing resources. Navigators who guide and support homeless veterans through the housing search process. The HMIS I mentioned is actually called the Homeless Management Information System. It enrolls those who are in need of housing. The by name list of people in need of housing, and the Vulnerability Index Service Prioritization Decision Assistance pre-screen tool, otherwise known as the VS for that. It's a questionnaire. And then the VS for that actually is being evaluated for fairness in how it interviews those who are seeking housing. Develop an evaluation plan to measure the effectiveness of Pathfinder activities, and that would be developed in consultation and collaboration with the King County staff, myself, and Gretchen and others. And of course, incorporate the best promising and most emerging practices to be delivered in a culturally appropriate way.
Frank, I have a question about that too. May I?
Yeah.
So, given that there's scant research out there on working with Native veterans, one of the things that we're dreaming a little bit is how to have our work contribute to the body of literature. So I just wonder if the county has a position on, so that of course there would be targeted evaluation of how are we doing, continuous improvement, being searched, not that kind of nitty gritty, but then also we're looking at, especially given that the funding's a little more generous on that first year, if we could engage in the front end. Let's say you've done all but who's looking, graduate students who's looking for focus.
Sure. Please do.
Event.
Yeah.
So just kind of, we'd like to think about expanding that piece of it beyond what the county is requiring in order to serve this greater need of.
And are you describing the research?
I mean, it's just. I'm so sorry, guys.
We'll work with you. There.
Get out of your hair.
I would say make the best application. So if you believe it adds value to the goal of reaching more veterans, either that year or the year after, I would think you can get that case of application.
That's a great way to.
Yeah, of course.
This is sort of unrelated, so sorry for jumping in, Frank. But the other thing I'll just highlight, and I think it speaks to what you were raising earlier, is there's another investment in the levy called Understand Community Priorities. It was recently released into the community, and there was actually very few responses for veterans. And that funding is entirely dedicated to understanding what are the, is there any data? Is there any surveying or focus grouping that we could support that would allow a community to speak about what their experience is? And I think Native veterans certainly would be eligible if any organization applied and wanted to contribute to that. So we can certainly make you aware if that gets re-released for the veterans portion as well. But I think that'd be a really, I mean, certainly it sounds like what Frank said as well, put in your application, but this is another opportunity as well.
Yeah, right. Because we're running a pilot focus group next week to, as a way to see, okay, are these protocols, is this type of event, is that drawing veterans, and then the conversations that we're having? Is that revealing needs? Is that, and then how can we dovetail that with the services that we plan and want to? So, so great. I will keep my.
Yeah, and I'll make sure and share it with Frank so that he can email it out to you all as well.
Thanks, Adam.
You're welcome.
So in terms of the funding, a total for the funding period, which is between May 1st, 2020, that's when we're activating the program, through the end of 2023 is $732,344. You may have looked at that table in the RFP, and I have another document that describes that as well. Take a look at that, and it shows a little context for where that funding came from, because we did procure a part of that earlier.
Thank you.
And when I had described earlier that the overall funding for the levy does fluctuate according to property values because it's a property tax fund source, it also is contingent, at least the 21-23 funding is contingent on approval of the King County Council budget and continued partnerships and provision of data on program performance and implementation. What that last part means is that the county has the opportunity to take a look at the spending that's been going on for the previous 2 years and make adjustments. This request is open to nonprofit organizations, community-based organizations, tribes and tribal organizations, and public or governmental agencies serving communities in King County. Small nonprofits, community-based organizations, and proposals from separate organizations, partnership and encourage organizations under an existing King County contract with a similar scope of work are not eligible to. Now, for evaluation, it's one of the contract requirements. While you're not required to submit a detailed, fully developed evaluation plan, please be sure your program model accounts for strategies anticipated core performance measures. So those are described in the RFP. Those have to do with reporting on a regular basis, which is reporting on the work that you're doing, essentially. It includes graphics as well as a narrative report in which you can describe how you feel the work went through the previous year. There's data level, client level data, and aggregate and narrative reports that we do on a regular basis. Timeline. So here we are today at the Business Conference. On the 10th, if you are interested in applying for technical assistance, please do so right now. The final days to submit questions, just any question on the RFP, is the 17th, the following week. And those questions will be posted in Zoom ranks along with the RFP. Anyone who can email the document that. As questions come in, I'll add to that FAQ frequently asked questions so that everyone can have the same information at the same time. As you know, when I sent out the notice of the RFP was released, in it I described how I would be answering your questions. But if I did receive a question, if you had answered the question, asked a question in response to my email, I would have brought that here and it would become part of the first FAQ application. So we just want to make sure everyone has the same information at the same time, so no one has an advantage. The responses are due by Monday the 24th, and that's a very specific time before midnight. Responses will be reviewed and rated late March. We put late, early, mid because we're not exactly sure what those dates will be, but they'll be within those ballparks. If an interview is necessary, if the town decides that it would be helpful to interview one or more applicants, we will do that in early April. By mid-April, I'd like to have the notifications of the award decisions completed and the contract start date by May 1st. And this is also described.
So when you're applying, of course, apply by the deadline. That's really important. You'll respond to summary questions, and those summary questions are essentially the name of your office, what district, what King County Council districts might serve, where's your office located, what do you also provide your services. Response to the narrative questions, and that's really the meat of the narrative. Narrative questions allow you to describe your unique approach to this work and convince the panel that they should send it to you. You will also provide us an estimated 12-month budget that covers the proposed goals and activities and outcomes. And you'll see that form in the budget tab as you advance the application. And you'll complete an organizational equity chart describing your organization's makeup. And that's also included. Any questions about it? So rating criteria is very important. We want to hear about your organization's mission and vision, but we also want to hear a story. And that mission and vision will reflect your communities and the community that you serve. The client story demonstrates a culture of learning when things don't go as planned. So we'd like you to talk about a learning experience, which is how we'd like to look at what you might have within your organization. And population description, of course, program description. The program description in the past, we have had responses that kind of describe again the mission and vision of the organization. And we'd really like you to focus on what exactly we're going to do with those are. Say the description of what you do and how you do it for your organization vision and mission. The panel really wants to see right off the bat on the top of that program description, what is it that we're proposing, how we're going to do it.
It was super helpful to have the how differentiated from the where.
Oh, good. Yes. Yeah, there's 3 very specific questions. Partnerships and collaboration. Not just whether you're applying as a partnership, but also how have you worked in collaboration with others in the past. It'd be helpful for the panel to know that. Equity and social justice demonstrator. I'd like to see you demonstrate how you practice that. Both within your organization and within your services. Organization capacity and quality management. We want to make sure that you can do the work, essentially. You can tell us how you can commit this, how you can do that work, describing that. And budget and fiscal. We want to make sure the costs are reasonable and that you demonstrate an ability to effectively manage public funds or request technical assistance to do so. So I do have a list of it. Did I already give that to you? I think I did. So the technical assistance provided are listed in the RFP. Just so in front of you here. Now, you do have to meet this qualification to receive technical assistance. Fewer than 20 full-time employees and less than $4 million operating budget in the previous year. And you have, again, until the 10th of February to make that request. Assistance provided. And I did contact these technical assistance providers and made sure that they were aware of this RFP. And heard back from a couple that have taken a look at it. They're standing by.
Are there any examples of things that they can do for people? Like, do they write it for you, or how does that work?
They don't write it for you, but they will answer. Thank you. But they will answer any questions you have and give you advice for how to approach and answer what you might be thinking. They can anticipate and provide you some insight on what a panel might be looking for.
Absolutely.
So all of RFP materials are posted on Zoom Grants. For the attachments, some of which you have in front of you now, you can click on the library tab. That's where we put all the documents related to the RFP, including the FAQ see the questions. And you can expect questions to come in. I would expect some questions to come in after this Leaders Conference today. So keep in mind that you might want to go back and take a look at the library tab, even if you've already downloaded all of the attachments, just to keep up with that. Check regularly for updates. Although you don't have this document, I will email it to you so that you do. And you can either click on the link that's in there or just look for Zoom grants to stay updated with notices. All applications must be filled out and submitted via Zoom, which I already described. And any questions you may have in the library tab, in fact, document. Wow. Already at the end. So contact me if you like. Just remember, when you contact me, I won't be able to answer. I just post your questions. Well, I can answer your question and post it in a fact. I won't answer it right away. I'll find out what answer it in a fact. You can check library tab and find out what the answer is. Any other questions?
Oh, it's a lot of information to take in, but and just having some of the contracting background that I got in there, so that brought. So I did a lot of, we were under the Federal Acquisition Regulations, DoD contracting, Department of Army contracting. So we also did all this sole source scope of work and all development and all that stuff too. Right. So kind of brought all that back. I've been out of the Army for about 10 years, so. So,
I hope it wasn't too stressful.
Yeah, so that's why I was smiling, because I had a lot of bidders too, and I'm like, can't exactly redo it.
It should be relatively easy compared to DoD requirements. I have a feeling.
And so it's pretty exciting. It's a new focus for us. For Heroes Promise, it's something that we wanted to do. We worked with the Native American community for quite a while, and so that's going to be a lot of our reliancy is working with these partnerships up here. Aren't you Doug? Kid too, so.
Nice. Now I realize I didn't really talk a lot about Zoom grants, working with Zoom grants. In terms of getting into the weeds, if you do qualify for technical assistance, that's something that most consultants can certainly walk you through. It has a fairly helpful help function, but if you've taken a look at it already, I don't know if I would log on to Zoom grants.
No, not yet.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I did. I clicked on the library and downloaded it, and then went old school.
Okay.
I'm kind of an old school too. I like to absorb, I like seeing the materials first, and then for some, I'm kind of an old school brain, so looking at stuff directly through the computer. This is how I got my material and soak up the material, being able to read, touch, highlight, and then being able to go over on the computer.
Well, one thing I would recommend when you get there is to compose your answers in a Word document or some other text document, edit them there, and then just be ready to cut and paste into the Zoom grant answer fields. And be aware that the answer fields are limited to characters. So not words, but characters, which include spaces. So that's something that you'll see as you dump stuff in and maybe it cuts off. Oh, I have a character. So be careful of that. Be aware of that. Any other suggestions for Zoom grant training for applicants?
Quite straightforward.
Just answering questions?
Yeah, this is where I always say, as you're answering it, concise is better. It's easier for the panelists to read, and it helps them get right to the nugget of what you're going to do. And you don't need to make the case for why this needs to be done. We've already done that in passing the levy and writing the implementation plan. We know why this is important. So use your characters to explain what you would do in response.
That's maybe best.
Mark
Twain said, if I'd had more time, I would have written you a shorter letter.
That's a good one.
The only other thing that I work with some of the TA providers as well and help kind of look over a lot of them. The big thing would be, we have this link here, which if there's like a sign-in sheet, we'll make sure we can email you this information as well. But to access the application, you can either go through the specific Zoom Grants link. I think it's on the front of the RFP. But you don't want to go to zoomgrants.com and then try and log in. You want to either go through this website or go through the link that's posted on the cover page of the RFP. And then the other thing is that the attachments can be a little funky. So if you ever get stuck whenever you're wanting to upload your budget or anything like that, contact a TA provider or shoot a question to Frank, and he might either clue in the TA providers as well as put it in the FAQ. Those things can be a little finicky when you're uploading stuff and downloading the template of the budget template. That's the other thing I get tripped up on.
Especially if you're doing it last minute where everything goes haywire.
Yeah, and it does have it's kind of if you've ever gone online and filled out like a survey, it auto saves as you go through. But every now and again it'll get stuck and it'll just be flashing this green saving button at you. It's saving the information, just refresh the page and it should all be there again. But don't get freaked out. It should be all saved right up to that moment. Those are the things I would just
Excellent.
throw out there, yeah.
Thanks.
And contact the TA providers.
That's right. Yeah.
Question about the funding. So year one is almost double that. In year one, 9 months. So it's almost double that for subsequent years. And I don't have to tell you guys that it takes time and effort to spend money well. But so is there? And forgive me if it's already written here and I just haven't seen it. The policy on carryover. Is that all spelled out and I just need to do my homework a little better? Or
No, it's not really spelled out, but correct me if I'm wrong, you two. From what I understand, we spend in bienniums. So we have a 1920 schedule, or calendar that we are in right now. This one is spent within that. So from what I understand, there's no carryover from that into the next budget.
Okay.
There can be carryover within the years within a budget. 1920 we do that.
Yes. And so we will be within that biennium of the 1920 in that first wave of funding that you see. But the payment for these contracts is not on a line item reimbursement. It's based on a quarterly. And so what we do to make sure that the funds are being spent towards the program is when we did a site visit, we would come out and say, show us the trajectory that you're on to spend these down. So we work with you in a way to make sure that the dollars are just verifying that the dollars are going towards this project in a way that's observable, trackable, and that you're on the trajectory to spend them down towards the project. But you've also rightly noticed that there can be some one-time costs that maybe this is a way to get your program on the ground and really launched well.
Right.
The other thing I'll say is, I had a recent RFP where people got hung up on this a lot. I think the key part is at this stage, just get whatever program you want to do to us. And then in the contracting part, it's more of a back and forth. And it's not you say you're going to do this thing, so we're going to take that and we're not going to change anything. I'm not going to have any flexibility. It's a lot more Frank will work with you and say, all right, here's the program you've proposed, here's the budget we've suggested, and then from there you are actively engaged in that. So don't let the funding trip you up right now. You're not at that stage yet. Just focus on what program do you want to do, and then Frank and the team will talk with you more about that later.
That's really helpful because I think part of what's exciting about this is the design possibilities within it, and having that based on needs, and having a bigger, better, stronger needs assessment over periods of time to check. So in terms of the program, what I read in this is also a commitment to a process to get to a program and to improve the program. So that's really exciting, I think.
Yeah, and I don't want to speak for you. I just want to encourage people that it could totally work out that you get, say, if someone gets awarded or selected, and then a couple of months go down the line, and Frank's checking back in with you, and you're like, oh crap, this isn't working out the way we want to. It's Frank will be working with you to adjust to make sure that you both feel comfortable. So I don't think it's King County policy to put people in a position where they feel uncomfortable about the time frame to spend money. But we'll just be in communication about that and making sure that everyone feels comfortable.
Absolutely. Any other questions?
Well,
Would you like us to?
It's just kind of a wondering. I mean, one of the things that we've been thinking about is what's the Lashutzi word for Pathfinder? Kind of what's the history? So we're not going to bore you with history in this because I love the conciseness of it, but just kind of thinking, what tradition are we operating within, and then how do we model that? Yeah, I'm trying to find a Lashutzi. Well, there is a Lashutzi speaker, and it's all about the nuance, right? So.
Did you know Von Hilbert?
Yes. Yeah.
I'd only met her once, an elder, but I met her through a friend, Robbie Rudini, and he has, on his own, he built a library of
and it's great, that online is great.
He's a white guy, but he just took an interest in the culture. He came from Texas, so I think he was just really delighted to find such connected to the place, populations, just fascinating.
Tukwila has an online one that they use for the schools, but it's very, it's more basic kind of, as a learning tool for language for people who are trying to recover. So.
I'll ask about that actually.
Okay.
Maybe ask Kyle. Well, I guess we should conclude unless there are any other questions.
No.
Great. Well,
I appreciate it. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for coming.